Hello and welcome to September Magic's YouTube channel. Today's video is for all those people who are just getting started with bullet journaling. Now, the one question that scares them the most is, how do I start bullet journaling? I have tried to break down the answer into simple steps for you to understand it better. So let's get started. First thing to consider when you're buying your bullet journal is the binding. Do you want it to be a hardcover book or a softcover book? Now, I would suggest going for a hardcover book for a couple of reasons. One, that it withstands wear and tear. So, because you'll be using your bullet journal on a daily basis. So, if you have a hardcover book, it will last you longer. The second thing is when you are drawing lines with your ruler, with the soft cover book, you won't be able to get the grip that easily because the cover folds all the time and slips from underneath. So it's a better option if you have a hardcover book. The second thing to consider when you're out there to buy a bullet journal is the page format. The page format can be decided based on the options available in the market, which are you can either go for a ruled book or a blank book or a book with grid lines or grid dots. Ruled books are basically similar to your notebooks with lines, which are great if you're going to use your journal to make lists, or if you are going to take school notes or class notes or whatever, you're writing down recipes. It's great when you're going to use your journal to write more. But if you think you want more flexibility, as in you want to draw in your journal, you want to stick pictures in your journal, you want to turn your journal around and turn it into a horizontal layout as opposed to the vertical layout. Now, those things can be quite tricky when it comes to ruled books. So in that case, you can either go for the grid books or you can go for the blank book. Now, the blank book is a blank canvas, in short, because it's basically a whole blank or plain area which you can explore the way you want. There are no limitations, no boundaries. You can just do whatever you want on the blank ones. Usually people use it if your journals are going to be more illustration heavy or drawings. You're going to do more drawings in your journal. So if you're going to doodle, or if you're going to write in a slanting format or in a horizontal format or whatever way you want, just to keep it as flexible as possible, the blank books are great. Now, for a person like me, I am really scared of blank books because I like my journals to have a combination of both text and image. So when it comes to writing on a blank piece of paper, I am not very good. My lines would start at the top and may end at the bottom because I cannot keep them straight. So if you are somebody who is super confident about writing on blank pages, then the blank format is great for you. And also if you want to just use it for drawings and illustrations. Now, the third format is obviously the grid lines. Now, grid lines is basically these checkered or squared patterns on your pages. So basically you have these tiny little squares which act as guides for you, and these are amazing because it is perfect for a beginner or people who are non-artistic, and even of course for artistic people. But the thing is, it gives you so much flexibility with your layout, because it's just a grid paper. You can just align your text with your images, just following the lines of the grid. Or you could, if you want to draw borders, you could just count the squares in the grid and keep your borders of the same width all around your page. Or if you want to draw like a banner and write the title of your topic in it, then even if you're not artistic, you will get an exact, a straight aligned shape just by counting the squares and following the lines of the grid. So the grid books are amazing when it comes to anyone who wants to do anything with journaling. So I definitely love the grid books, and the grid lines are one way to go for it. But my personal favorite are the grid dots. Now the reason being that it has all the flexibility that a grid lined book gives you, but at the same time there's this additional feature that is the dots or the guides on the paper, the grids on the paper are so faint and light that they don't interfere with my drawings. I love drawing, I love drawing in my journals. I love changing the layout or the way my pages are every now and then, I love to do that. And with my drawings, what happens is if I have a grid lined book, the lines show through my drawings, which is not very pretty. So I definitely like grid dot books because the dots are so faint that they hardly show through the drawings, and the drawings look flawless. So if you are somebody like me, you can definitely go for the grid dots because you'll get all that I said about the grid lines with the grid book, but you have this additional advantage. But also make sure when you're buying your grid dots, make sure your grids are a little, even with grid lines, just make sure the grids are a little wider, not very tiny, because then it's hard to write in it. But when choosing your grid dots, make sure the dots are faint and thin and small. So the reason I'm saying is when you have these dark, bold dots on your pages, it kind of interferes with the writing. When you're trying to make a little calendar for maybe the month in question or something like that, it just the dots kind of interfere with your pen ink or the ink of your pen, and it just looks very ugly. So it's just a tip. It's a personal opinion, but if you have the option, go for dots which are really, really faint and small. So that's with the page format. So choose between a ruled, blank, grid lined or a grid dotted book. Now the other thing that you have to consider, which is the third thing that you have to consider when you're buying your bullet journal, is the size of the book. Now, how big do you want your book to be, or how small you want your book to be? Now, I've gone for an A4 size journal in the past. The only problem with that journal was that I couldn't carry it around in my purse. Now, it's not so much of a problem if you know that you're going to use your journal at home. For me, whenever I'm going out, I want my journal to be in my bag so that I can write in it. If I see something interesting or something that I want to remember, I just want to quickly jot it down in my journal. And so I would want that in my purse, which I'm not able to do if I have an A4 size journal. Otherwise, I have to carry a huge purse, which I don't want to. But that's the reason I definitely like a journal which is a bit smaller. But the way around that problem is to have a field journal. You can have a small journal that you can carry with you in your purse, take down your notes, come back home, and then jot down everything neatly and nicely on your page. It's like rehearsing before the final show. But I am not somebody who would like to do that. I love the spontaneity of the whole bullet journaling experience. So I love to sit down and just make one whole page the way I want to and jot down things at the end of the day. I am hardly a person who would take things down in one book and then come back home and repeat the whole process. So if you're not as lazy as me, then definitely go for an A4 size book and then have a field book along with it, field journal along with it. The reason being, A4 size books give you a lot of space to write and draw and whatever you want, and your whole layout will be more more free, and it will be all nicely spaced out instead of cramming everything into the small space in other size journals. Now the other ideal size would be A5, which is my personal favorite because it's big enough for you to fit your content and small enough to carry in your bag. So I definitely recommend the A5 size journals. They are very, very, very handy, and you have enough space to make your monthlies and your yearlies and everything, and your weeklies. So I definitely recommend the A5. After this, the next thing to consider is the quality of the paper. So to test the quality of a bullet journal, you basically turn to the last page of your bullet journal and make lines with all the markers and the pens that you have in your possession, or with those that you're going to use in your journal, and then write down their brand names. So basically I've just used a few to show you as an example. So I've just put lines and then written their corresponding names in front, and after that you just turn to the page at the back and see if any of those pen lines are showing through the page. This just makes sure that none of the pens that you will be using in your bullet journal are going to bleed through or show through your page and ruin the page on the back, and making it impossible for you to write on that page. So it's very easy and convenient, or it is an ideal thing to do before you start bullet journaling, because I have ended up using markers that start ghosting, and then my whole page I had to stick 2 pages together, or had to stick another page on top of it, just because I could not write anything on the marks that were visible from the pens that I used on the previous page. So it's always best to do a pen test before you actually start bullet journaling. However, if you have a little bit more time, what you can do is turn this pen test into an ink swatch test. So basically an ink swatch test is something like this, where all you do is make little squares or any other shape that you want to, and put down or color those shapes with all the markers that you have in your possession. So for example, I had 24 colors in my American Crafts brush markers. So all I did was put all the colors in these squares, all the 24 colors in these squares, and what this helps me establish is whether any of these markers will be bleeding through the page. No, they won't, because I can't see any bleed through with any of these markers. So I am safe using these markers on my page. That is one thing that I've established. But at the same time, by doing this, now I have a visual collection of all the colors that I have in my possession. So basically, when I am sitting down to bullet journal and I want to use a shade of purple, I don't have to go through my entire collection of markers just to get that one right shade of purple. All I have to do is look for the swatch and look for the brand, and then I know which shade of purple I want to use. So this, but just by putting this little extra effort, you save a lot of time every time you sit down to write in your journal or draw in your journal. And also, this is a great way of keeping track of what pens you have. You can do the same with washi tapes you have, or with paints that you have. So, and the positioning of this page should be right at the end of the journal, so that when you are in between your journal, you don't have to flip through pages to find this particular page. You know that it's at the back. So I definitely recommend having either a swatch collection or just a simple pen test. But when doing a pen test, make sure to have the brand names written in front of it. Otherwise, you will not know which pen bleeds through the page. Once you get your bullet journal, the next thing that happens is you stare at the first page of your bullet journal and sit and think, what am I supposed to do now? How do I get started? Now, it is, I know it's very overwhelming with so much out there on Instagram and on Pinterest and everywhere. You feel that, oh my God, how am I going to do it, whether I'm going to be able to do it or not. I have a few tips to make it less overwhelming. The first thing to decide is what would be your style of journaling. Do you want it to be very artistic with elaborate drawings and doodles and illustrations, or do you want it to be minimal, which is like just pen to paper, that's it, nothing fancy? Or do you want it to be very crafty, which is like, do you want to stick washi tapes in it, or do you want to put labels and stickers in it, or do you want to cut out pictures from magazines and stick it? You know, it's up to you. You can go for any style you're comfortable with, and you don't even have to stick to one style. You can start with a minimal layout and then move on to an artistic one, and then say you bought a bunch of stickers and washi tapes, and then you can decide to go all crafty in your style. So basically it's a very fluid and flexible method of journaling, but it's good to have some clarity of how you want to begin. The next thing to consider is types of pages that you would like in your bullet journal. When I say types of pages, I don't want you to plan the entire journal even before you have started journaling. Please don't do that. It just kills the whole joy of bullet journaling. What I mean by types of pages is that it's ideal to have a few pages in the beginning of your journal. That way, the whole experience of bullet journaling becomes very, very convenient. Now, I'll tell you how. The first thing to have is, of course, your table of contents or your index. Now, a journal like the Loiston 1917 has got pre-printed table of contents, but the problem is there are only 2 pages of table of contents. Now, for a person like me with my kind of handwriting and the way I write my table of contents, I may require a few more pages. So I would ideally add 2 more pages to my table of contents. And some journals don't even have pre-printed ones, so all you have to do is draw your own index. So this journal did not have it, so I created my own index. It's just a description and the corresponding page. So that's it, nothing fancy, just 2 columns with that's all you need for a table of contents. Just give first 4 or 3 pages to the table of contents. Now, the next thing to have is, the ideal thing to have is keys. Now, what are keys? Keys are basically these little symbols that help you find any topic in your journal anywhere. For example, I will be putting a square in front of all the tasks that I will be jotting down in my journal. So that way, when I flip through my book and I see that square, I know that those squares stand for some task that I had jotted down. After that, when I start working on the task, I'll just put a diagonal line to indicate that that particular task is in progress. I have started working on it. And then if I put another diagonal square in the opposite direction, then I know that that task has been cancelled. And if it has not been cancelled, if I work on my task and I finish it, all I have to do is add more lines around this diagonal lines to create this particular symbol, which is for task completed. So now this is how I will show how my task is progressing. Now, for any reason, if I'm not able to complete the task in the month I had decided to, what I can do is I can put an arrow in that square which would indicate that that particular task has been rescheduled or has been migrated to another month. I have used this triangle symbol for all the events in my life. Basically, when I want to write down somebody's birthday, or if I want to write down if I have to attend somebody's birthday, I'll just put a little triangle in front of it, which will indicate that there is an event coming up. A little circle for any appointments I may have, a star for anything important that I have to get to, an exclamation mark for all the bright ideas that pop in my head, and a dash for all the notes that I'm making for myself. This whole representation of keys is a very minimalist way of doing it. I don't like my keys to be somewhere in the middle of my book. Because if I am writing in my journal, if I'm somewhere here in my journal and I'm writing in my journal and I forget what symbol stands for events or what symbol stands for appointments, I have to flip through my book to find my keys. So I personally don't like my keys to be in the middle of the book. So what I have done to solve that problem is I have stuck a page inside the front cover of my book. So basically this page folds and I have my keys right here. So by having my keys right here, it solves a very big problem that when I'm journaling, I always have my keys open here, and that way I don't have to flip through my pages or keep looking back at my keys every now and then. And this is very simple to do. What I have done is this is my A5 size Leuchtturm. So what I've done is I've taken an A4 size page from another journal I had, and I folded it into half and then trimmed it a bit because I knew it would jut out of the journal otherwise. So I just trimmed it a bit and I stuck it here, and then I added another piece of paper on top and decorated it a bit because I didn't want that as soon as I open my book there'll be this odd looking page inside my cover. So just to solve that little problem, what I did is I made it a little decorative, and then it also helps me make this page thicker, because that way it will withstand all the wear and tear that it will go through, because I'll be using this, I'll be folding it in, folding it out every now and then, because I'll be journaling throughout. So this is definitely going to help me reinforce it a bit more. So that's the way to do keys. Now I'll show you what I've done with these keys. Even this is my artistic journal. This is what I keep to show you all the artistic layouts I have. So what I have done here is I have made a little I have made a decorative key here, just because we are talking about keys, and then I've kept the task symbols to be the same, but then changed the one for celebration from a triangle to a heart. For all the light bulbs that go off in my head, I have this little light bulb for all the ideas, and if I have something to buy, I have this small shopping bag, a star for all the important things, an exclamation mark for a reminder, for any reminders that I may have, a note symbol for notes. And this is very handy. This is like a water droplet for my water intake. Now I'll show you how I use that. So every day I put these droplets in front of each day. Here there are 6 droplets, so this indicates that I've had 6 glasses of water on Monday, which is not the ideal target. My target is having 8 glasses of water or more. So hey, on Wednesday I did drink 8 glasses of water, so I put 8 droplets here. So this could be steps that you want to count. So you could have the number of steps you walk, or the number of hours you sleep, or it could be something else, the number of calories you intake. So you can track anything like that. You can have a key for anything like that. And I also have a cloud for all the crazy thoughts that float around in my head. So I like to jot those things down because you never know when one of those thoughts turn into some genius ideas, So basically, that's why I like to jot them down in my journal. So that's what you can do with keys. After the table of contents and the keys, the ideal thing to have is a future log, which is basically a planner with small squares assigned for each month. But I hardly use a future log because I'm somebody who plans her tomorrow or her day after tomorrow or 2 days down the line, but I'm not the person who plans like what will happen 6 months down the line, because it usually never works for me. If there is something like that, I write it down in a section which I have in my journal for goals, all the goals that I have to accomplish. But instead of a future log, I like to have a yearly spread. This yearly spread is nothing but a calendar of the year 2020. So I like to draw, so I've drawn something like this. But if you want to turn this particular layout into a future log, all you have to do is get rid of these drawings. So you will have these empty squares for each month, and then you can write down whatever goals you have in there. See, so you can just easily turn this calendar into a future log. Because I did not need a future log, I just did some drawings in there, and I love this layout. And this is a very handy page, and I think it should always be in the front right after the table of contents and the keys, for one very big reason. It is that when you are journaling and say for example you want to set up an appointment for the month of August, and you don't know what date falls on what day, all you have to do is turn to this page and look for August and then find the day and the date. It's so easy, and because it's right in the front, you don't have to flip through all the pages of your journal. It's right in the beginning. So I definitely think it's ideal to have a calendar right in the front. You can even have 3 calendars, one for the past year, one for the present year, and one for the year coming up. So that's another way. And after that, I like to have a spread for birthdays. It's basically because all kinds of celebrations like birthdays, anniversaries, they give me a lot of joy. It's always nice to reach out to people, wish them, or buy something nice for them. So I like to remember my birthdays and anniversaries and everything. So and I'm very forgetful, so this spread helps me helps me remember them, and I never forget to buy a gift for someone this way. So this is all I've done is I've made little squares for all the months, and I've made small cupcakes. You can do anything. You can just keep squares and months. You don't have to be all artistic. You could have chocolates. You could have anything that you want on this page instead of cupcakes, and then jot down what all birthdays you have in January, February, that way. And like the calendar, I think that it's better to have it in front, because it's easier for you. Like at the start of every month, what you can do is come to this page and see, like for instance we are in June now, so I can just come to this page and see what all birthdays are there in June, and that way I know how many birthdays I have to remember this particular month. So it's very handy to have it in front. I would definitely suggest you having the birthday spread if you're going to have one in the beginning. Now after the birthdays, the next thing to have is a monthly spread. Now again, like the yearly spread, you could have a monthly spread with squares for each day of each month. Or you could do a monthly spread like this, where it's just a calendar and a quote that I like, and some drawings and things like that. You could also condense the monthly spread to 1 page instead of 2. It's up to you. So do a monthly spread after a yearly spread. This helps you focus on 1 month, know what days and dates are there. The next thing after a monthly spread is a daily spread that I do. So this daily spread is for week 1 of June. So I have my calendar here, I have my to-do goals here, what all I want to accomplish this month. And if you see here, I've used my keys. So I wanted to post 2 YouTube videos this week, and I wanted to do 1 blog post, which I have completed, yay. And I will be crossing this off after I post this video. Hooray. So that's that. And then I have all the days here of the week. Now in this also I have the hearts to indicate what birthdays I have, and then I have written down whatever has happened on the days, and I have my water intake jotted down. Then I also have a little habit tracker here because I didn't want like one whole separate page for habit tracker. I just track it every week, so I just track down whatever, if I have worked out every day, if I have cleaned twice a day in the week, if I have posted on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, blog, whatever, here I just track it in my habit tracker. So this kind of a daily log is great to have. There are many more ways of doing the daily logs and the monthly logs and the birthday spreads and everything, but this is a great way to start. Now there are many different ways of doing the daily spreads. I'll definitely show you different layouts of different spreads in some video or post that I make, but this is a great way to start. Now if you don't want to get to be all fancy about this, all you have to do is do something like this. This is my monthly spread where I have my calendar and a little section for my notes, and then this is my daily spread where I have week 1 from June 1 to June 6, Monday to Saturday, and I have a column for my important dates. I can also turn this into a habit tracker if I want, but then I just jot down whatever has happened. This is a minimalist way of doing it. You could do this, you can make very easy patterns around, or choose not to stick something, some tapes or stickers or whatever you want around it if you don't want to, if you're not very creative. So it's basically up to you how you want to do it. So once you have all these initial pages, you are good to go. Then you can just keep on changing the layout the way you want, adding, subtracting, whatever you want, because you can have many different elements and be spontaneous. Just if you all of a sudden you are thinking of songs you want to add in your playlist, just make a list of all the songs you like. Or if you have a bucket list of watching say some 100 movies in then you just make that bucket list. Or if you want to travel somewhere, just make a list of all the places you want to see. So it can be anything. You just don't have to stick to the boring routine of writing your dailies and your weeklies and your monthlies. No, you can have a habit tracker, a mood tracker. You can track your finances. You can track your school schedule. You can track your routine, your sleep, your health, your steps, your water intake. You can do anything you want with your journal, but just have these initial few spreads which will help you progress smoothly. And these initial pages are just going to help you transition from being a beginner to an expert. So these are just some pages that are going to make you really comfortable journaling. So stick with these pages and I think you'll be fine. So hope you liked the video, and I hope these tips have helped you overcome the feeling that you get of being a beginner at bullet journaling. So just relax, go out, choose your bullet journal and start journaling. I'll see you later. Bye.